morning, Floss Tube. Now Flossmas is over and I'm not supposed to be doing regular weather reports anymore, but I wanted to show you what freezing rain looks like. The boys have a 2-hour delayed opening this morning, so my Stitch With Me taping is going to be a little bit delayed. But do you see all that shine? Let's look here on the steps. The steps are lethal. We're using the basement steps. Everything is covered in a thin layer of ice, and it is still cold and raining, so we're still getting freezing rain. So all that shine is freezing rain. It's crazy. Look at that. I don't know if you can see this. See how the grass there is covered in a thin layer of ice? Crazy. I'll chat with you inside soon. Tube, and welcome to my channel. I gotta remember where to look. Welcome to my channel. I feel a bit silly here with my magnifiers on, but that's what I need to stitch. This is my first Stitch With Me video, so thank you so much for joining me. I'd love your input on how you like this, if you like Stitch With Me videos at all, or how you like the format, or and I guess any other comments you want to make. That would be great if you don't mind dropping me a line below. I am going to be working today not on my larger Sweet Bee sampler, but a smaller piece, because I thought it's one I don't require as much concentration with, which I thought would be easier for speaking with you and chatting along and having a visit. And it would be easier for me to keep track of my stitches, especially for my first Stitch With Me, as I get hopefully, if you like them, and as I do more, I'll get more comfortable, and that will make it a little bit easier for me to concentrate. So I'm working on, it's a free pattern from Blackbird Designs. If you followed me on my Flossmas channel, this is one that I talked about earlier this week in my Floss Tube video. But I also did this, this was day 2 of Flossmas. It's called Now I Know My ABCs, and I can show you the chart because it's free. It's on Blackbird Designs website, so look them up. It's really cute, and I'll show you where I am right now. I have put in a few stitches because I did some in the van waiting for the kids stitching this week. So that's how far I am right now. So this is, now I've got something, I've got a piece of, oops, I've got a piece of fabric, or a thread of fabric. Oh my goodness. There we go. Don't want that in on the back of my piece. And I should have a needle minder here, but I don't. I'm gonna have to get one out of my Flossmas bags, because all my Flossmas projects have now been put in a plastic container by week that I worked on them, and I only have one with me upstairs now. The rest are downstairs in my craft area, which is a state, by the way. It's still a mess down there. But anyway, I know that I have some needle minders in with those projects, so I need to go back and get them out. So let's get started here. Rethread my needle. I am a thread licker when I start. And let's see how many times it takes me to thread this needle in public. Probably a few times. So it's Thursday. It's the 10th of January. I don't know where the time is going. I still don't need to trim that. I still don't have my Christmas things up. I've positioned the camera so you can't see my Christmas tree, because it's still in fine form. I haven't been turning the lights on the past 2 days, but all my Christmas decorations are still up. Tell me, there's somebody out there who still has their Christmas decorations up. I like to have them down by now, but frankly, this week, well, I'll tell you some of the things that happened this week, because it has been an exceptionally busy week. So Monday, the boys went back to school, and that's when I videotaped my most recent floss tube episode and did a tutorial. And thank you so much for all the kind comments about the tutorial. People really seemed to like it, and I think learned something a little bit new, which was great. So somebody had asked, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of who had asked, but somebody had mentioned they would like to see more of those types of tutorials, so I will do that. I think the next one I do will probably be a how-to cross stitch, because I'd like to have a collection of the videos starting from a how-to and then with some specialty stitches. I don't actually know very many specialty stitches, so there's not going to be 10 or 12 videos in the tutorial, but in the tutorial series. But I will do some more. Like I'll do a Bargello tuck and a pin stitch, and just generally how to cross stitch, and there might be some little tips, even if you've been cross stitching for a while, that you'll pick up, and hopefully you'll share little tips that you have as well, because the nice thing with cross stitch is there aren't any rules, so how I do something may be a little bit different to how you're doing something, and it would be great to share those ideas and techniques and tips. That would be wonderful. So let's see where I am. I am there. Over one and down. So yeah, Monday was busy with videoing for floss tube. Why do I feel like I'm doing well. Tuesday, what did I do on Tuesday? You know what? I can't remember what I did on Tuesday. I had something on Tuesday, but I can't remember what it was. So Tuesday is now over. Yesterday, Wednesday, got very exciting. So I dropped the boys off at school, and that was fine. And I had a whole bunch of errands to run, yesterday being Wednesday. And Wednesday's when 3 of our boys have their swimming lessons in the evening or after school, and one of them is in the evening, because the older one, because he's in a higher level. And so I dropped them off at school. Everything was going grand. Came back home to pick up a few things and get back in the van again, and the van wouldn't start. Like, it just wouldn't start. It just went click. Every time I tried to turn over the motor, the engine didn't turn over, nothing. Completely dead. And my husband was on a course. He's doing a management course downtown, just as part of work. And he wasn't able to come up. So I did text him and said, well, you know, should I get it towed? So he suggested that I call our regular garage, which is here. We're in the community that we live in. So I called up there, and our mechanic said, yep, it's going to need to be towed. So I was thinking, well, I guess that's it. I guess my day is done. I'm not going to be able to get anything done. So, oops, I went over one stitch. The challenge of stitching over 2 threads, which is what I'm doing on this 28 count Monaco, is you have to be careful you don't go over too many stitches, or too many threads. I went over 3 threads then instead of 2. So anyway, my husband got back to me by text. But this is all our communication yesterday was by text, because like I said, he was in that course, so he's probably texting during the course, which I guess he shouldn't have been doing. But anyway, he's a big boy. It's an adult's course, so, you know, life happens. And yeah, so he says, well, go rent a car, because our mechanic had said he wouldn't be able to look at it until today or tomorrow. And that's a long time for us to go with one vehicle. But I figured, well, I would walk to school and pick up the kids, because it is walkable. But I was afraid that today, because we have freezing rain, I'll talk about that in a minute, I was afraid that today was going to be really difficult getting them into school, because my husband for the course has to leave earlier than before the school opens, so too early to drop off the boys. 1 second now. 3023. 3023. Where are you? There you are. So anyway, I got a friend of mine who dropped me off. Well, this is ironic. So I got all these things to do. The van has broken down. I run to the airport where I think the rental car place is. So I rented it online and then got dropped off at the airport to pick up my rental car. And left a note with the key taped to the side of the van. And we also have a 1988 Westphalia camper van that's sitting outside our house, which is blue. And our other van is blue as well. So I had to leave a note on it saying, this is the van to take, so don't take the wrong van. Because the other one looks more like it needs a tow than the one that did need a tow. And so left that here, raced over to, well, I didn't race, but got over to the airport to check out my car, went inside to the rental car desks, and the company I had rented my car with is not at the airport. They're actually off-site. So I was there with a box, like a big box, because a friend that had dropped me off asked me to drop off some stuff at the school later. So I was traipsing around the airport with this big box of stuff, and they said, no, they're over at the Hertz building. I rented with Hertz, which is off-site. So if you ever come into the St. John's International Airport and you rent with Hertz, it's off-site. Now, the great thing is they have a shuttle. So somebody very kindly came over and got me and brought me back to the Hertz office from the airport. And we had a grand chat, myself and the young gentleman that picked me up. Turns out we both lived in the Canada area of Ottawa during the same years. So that was kind of cool. And so I got my car, managed to get most of my errands done. The really important ones, like picking up a parcel, it was the last day I could pick it up. So I needed to get that done. I got some mail from my Etsy shop out, and I got a few groceries. We're in desperate need of some groceries, so I got those as well. So that was great. I still have to go tomorrow and pick up a couple things, but nothing as urgent as yesterday was. And then had time to go pick up the boys and, you know, do the regular thing. And then just before we left for swimming lessons at 10 to 4, the garage called and said, your van is ready. It was the battery. So it's all fixed. And we changed the oil too while we were at it. So that was just great. I apologize if I'm talking too fast. It's not because I'm nervous. I'm from Newfoundland and Labrador, and we speak quite quickly here. I usually try and slow down a bit when I'm doing these videos because I know that we speak quickly. But of course, as I'm having a usual conversation, I'm going to start to speed up. So I apologize if I'm speaking too quickly for some people. So hopefully you're able to follow along with me. 2 little stitches here. So I use the sewing method when I am stitching. Anyway, so I'll get back. Let me get back to the band before I get onto the sewing method. So anyway, through the jigs and reels, we also had swimming last night and a meeting at the school for my oldest about a school trip next year. And it was just a busy evening. So my brother was kind enough to come over and help look after our other 2 boys while I was at a meeting, and while my oldest son was with my husband at the swimming pool. And then my brother kindly helped me return the rental car and then go to the garage. My husband paid for it on the way along from when he was finished up work. Got the key and paid for it. And so my brother dropped me off and I picked it up at the garage. Came on home, which was very fortuitous because we were forecasted to get freezing rain. And in this province, the rental car agencies are not mandated to have winter tires. Can you believe that? It is not obligatory for rental cars to have winter tires. So they have all-season tires. And it's an extra $20 a day if you want to have winter tires. Now, I'm fine with all-season tires when it's, even in a little bit of snow, I'm okay, but I'm not okay with them in freezing rain. I want winter tires in freezing rain. Freezing rain is just so dangerous to drive on. So that's one of the reasons why I was out late in the evening getting the rental car returned, because I didn't want to have this brand new car that I was renting in an accident this morning because of the freezing rain that I knew we were having. So that got all returned, and then we had the van back last night, and so I was able to scrape off a considerable amount of freezing rain off it today and get the boys to school. And So I think I showed, well, I'm going to put in a video that I took this morning of the freezing rain from our front deck. The boys had a delayed school start, so instead of starting at 9 o'clock, they just started at 11. It's 10 after 11 now, so I dropped them off around 10:30. And I have to say, I think today they should have canceled school. It was, I mean, I think the boys got to school safely. Now, my middle son fell once in the driveway on the ice and had to come in and get changed because he got soaking wet. He fell again on his way into the school building, but he went on. He said he was fine, and I let him go. Hopefully he didn't get too wet. But really, with the roads the way that they are today, I think they probably should have canceled school. Instead, they had a delayed opening. And I mean, I recognize that they're trying not to lose school days and such, but I think days like this, it probably would have been better if they had canceled school, because the walking conditions, just getting in and out of the buildings, they didn't seem to have it salted at the school or something. It was just really treacherous walking. So anyway, if it was really, like if we were having a blizzard and they said that school was open, I would keep the kids home. But because I was able to get them out to school, we're only a 5-minute drive from the school. So because I was able to get them there safely, I'm comfortable with them being there, but I still think they probably shouldn't have gone. Anyway, that's my 10 cents worth about that. Hopefully the pictures that I took will also show you how thick the freezing rain is. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick everywhere. So everything is slicked with 1/4 of an inch or more of ice. It's really, like the boys said, it's really pretty to look at. It's just lethal. It's very dangerous. Okay, so I just put away that color and I need it again. Oh, no, I already did that. So I need more of this color. Just confirm that. 919. So this pattern originally called for Crescent Colors. Crescent Colors, that seems like an old name. Well, this is a 2010 pattern, so I think those are classic Colorworks now. But anyway, Crescent Colors, Gentle Arts, and Week Dye Works. But I'm using and there's also a DMC conversion listed, which is what I'm using. So the heart is DMC 919. It's interesting, this color for Weeks Dye Works is called Red Rocks, and this is let me show you there. That color is the color of the red rocks that we saw around, I think the town is called Red Rocks actually, in Colorado. When we went to my sister's wedding this past summer, we got to see those red rocks, which are about the same color as this. And so I imagine the Weeks Dye Works color was probably named after Red Rocks, Colorado, I'm guessing. And I could be totally wrong. Now let's get this threaded and get on the go here again. There we go. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this piece when it's finished. I think it might be a bit big for a pillow, so I'm considering getting it, either framing it myself or getting it professionally framed. We'll see how it looks when I'm done. I am kind of excited to, it's always nice to get a project finished, and that's the joy of trying to complete these Flossmas projects. That, I should have a finish at least once a month. That's all I ask, a finish once a month. I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation or desire. So as I mentioned a minute ago, I use the sewing method for stitching. And if you're interested, I can do a tutorial on that too, but I really shouldn't need to. Kitten Stitcher has done a wonderful tutorial on how to stitch using the sewing method. Stitching Mommy, I think, is another one that I had used when I was learning how to do this, because I only learned how to stitch using the sewing method in, I want to say, the fall. Hasn't been very long. I really like it though. It's It's a little bit faster, which I needed because I was or am a relatively slow stitcher. And especially when I'm getting things ready for a pattern for sale, I was finding it very difficult to get pieces done on time. Part of it is because I have 3 children and life is just busy in my household. So it's just frankly a time issue. But part of it is just because I was a slow stitcher. So I decided I would learn how to use the sewing method. And so far so good. Really enjoying it. Now I use a mix probably, I should say, of the sewing method and of just the, what would you call it, poke? Poke method. Just how all of us learn, or most of us I guess. Some people learn using the sewing method, but how a lot of us learn how to cross stitch where you're just going up and down per hole. So I do find this a bit faster, which is good. Now, is that okay? Is that in the right hole? Yep. It's in the right hole. So anyway, it's helped me speed up, but I have noticed another lady in the I'm gonna have to start writing down people's names and comments if I'm going to refer to them in the video, because it's kind of a shame to, perhaps you don't want your name mentioned in the video. I have to consider that, I guess. But for people who ask questions, I should write down their names. So somebody, again, had asked a question or has commented that they're also learning the sewing method but are struggling with it. And they're using Aida, I think. And I use Aida all the time. I do most of my design work on 14 count Aida for the kits that I do. So I'm not adverse to using Aida at all. Use it all the time. But what I have found using the sewing method is that Aida, depending on the brand you're using, and Aida tends to be stiffer than, well, certainly than what I'm using, this 28 count Monaco, which has been tea and coffee dyed. This is quite a supple fabric, which lends itself to the sewing method because it is so easy to use to stitch in hand with it. But I will tell you, if you're learning how to stitch using the sewing method, the softer your fabric is, the easier you're going to find it to stitch. At least that's been my experience so far. And I am by no means an expert. But if you're looking for how to, or easier ways of using the sewing method, then I would recommend using a softer fabric. So what you could do on your 14, 18, 16 count Aida, if it's got a lot of starch, or sizing, if it has a lot of sizing or whatever it is that they use in it to make it so stiff, that what you could do is just put it in, I would probably try, now I haven't tried this, so I would do this on a little tiny piece of fabric to check first to see how it does. But I wouldn't scrunch it up or anything. I just lay it in a pan of water with a titch of really gentle soaps, like maybe Soak is one that I use for knitting. That one would be good, or a really mild dish soap, maybe like Dove or something like that, like or Ivory, a really mild soap. And then let that soak for a few minutes. And then so I would put it in flat and let it soak, and then I would pull it out and let it dry, drip dry, or lay flat. But don't scrunch it to wring the water out of it, or it'll make your fabric really, really wrinkly and it's hard to get out. But then leaving it to dry or hanging it outside the line would be even better, because the wind will allow it to dry when it's moving, and that movement, I think, will make the fabric even a little bit more supple. So that might be a way of softening up your fabric so that And that kind of wash in just cool water shouldn't, oops, that's what happens when I'm talking and not paying attention. That shouldn't affect your, the size of the holes in the fabric. Some people are concerned that, because when you dye, like use this coffee tea dye that I've done, or any kind of colored dye that is used on fabric, it will cause the holes in the fabric. The fabric does change a bit. It's kind of an inevitable part of the dyeing process. And if the hole, so that means that the holes in your fabric may get smaller. But I think in the method that I just described, they shouldn't, because you're not adding any heat or agitation to the fabric, so it shouldn't affect the size of the holes. However, like I said, try that on a small piece of fabric first and see how it does. So that's just a little hint on how you might be able to use the or make your fabric a little easier if you're interested in using the sewing method. So I'm going right to town here, lickety split. I now have a W. Now have a W, so I'm going to end that thread. I have this much left, and I have to get over on the other side. So I am going to run, I don't always do this, usually sometimes I would cut that, but I'm going to run that over there and get started on the V. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is also one apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, let's go the whole 6 before we get some new floss. Trying to think what else I can tell you about. Excuse me. We went to, or I and a few friends who have children the same age, that would be 11-year-olds, went to a meeting at their school last night because they're ascertaining interest in 1, 2, 3, 4. A school trip next year, and it's called the Canadian Roots Trip. Oh, I might have made a mistake. Let's see. Let's see if I made a mistake. Yeah, I've got a mistake made somewhere. I think I'm going to fudge it. Let's see. This is a small piece. The B sampler is the B Sweet sampler that I'm working on. I have had to take back the B a couple of times because it's wrong, and I have to take it out again, which I haven't done yet, which is another one of the reasons why I'm not working on it right now. But because the center part of that sampler is so integral to the rest of the piece, I really wanted to make sure that it's as accurate as I can. Now, it won't be 100% accurate because I don't seem to be able to stitch when making things 100% accurate. I just don't seem to have that ability. But I want to make it as accurate as I can make it so that the rest of the sampler isn't off. But in something small like what I'm working on right now, nobody is ever going to notice. I have to control my perfectionist tendencies because I want to enjoy this process, but I don't want it to cause me a whole lot of stress, if that makes any sense. So let's see here. How are we going to do this? Let's get the V done. I can get that done. I know that that's correct. We'll go from there. Now I hum when I'm stitching if I'm not listening to anything, so I may start humming here in a second. What's our time? 29 minutes. I'm not going to tape too much longer. I don't want these videos to be exorbitantly long. Both for you, I'm cognizant of you sitting there and watching. Hopefully you're stitching along with me or knitting along with me or having a cup of tea. Or speaking of tea, I've got a cup of tea that I haven't even had a drink out of yet. Barely still warm. I have to heat it up again. I end up, I don't know what anybody else is like, but I make a cup of tea and I probably heat it up 6 times before I actually get it finished. Because first I steep my tea for an exorbitantly long amount of time. Because I use loose leaf tea. So I steep it for quite a long time. And then, I add milk. So that cools it off. And then I inevitably let it sit for too long and it cools off then as well. I'm drinking a tea called Read My Lips, which is by a Canadian company, David's Tea, which I'm fairly certain you've heard of before now. And it's one of the teas that they carry all the time, which is awesome because I drink it a lot. I drink so much of it because it and Earl Grey, those are my 2 favorite teas. But I buy my David's Tea, Read My Lips, by the kilogram bag. So I don't have to run to the mall every time I'm looking for a cup of tea. It gives me a few weeks to, yeah, is this gonna work? Yep, I think so. That gives me a few, well, more than a few weeks. It gives me a few months between visits to the mall to pick up more tea. And you get a discount when you buy in 1 kilogram bag. So if there's a tea you really love at David's Tea, you can buy them in 1 kilogram bags. I think the last one I got was a little under a kilogram because they didn't have quite enough. I sold them out. I took all the Read My Lips tea. And Read My Lips is it's a nice tea, but it's a chocolate mint flavor. And it's sort of Christmassy, I guess, but I love chocolate mint at any time of year, so I don't consider it a purely Christmas tea. Anyway, that's what I'm drinking, though mine has cooled off considerably. Here we go. So I think, trying to decide how I'm going to fix this mistake here. I think I'm going to leave it like that and see how it looks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed stitching with me. I hope you got a chance to sit down and do some stitching. That would be awesome, because that is the goal of a Stitch With Me video, is for you to sit down and have some quality time with your craft of choice. And I'd love to hear if you have a chance to comment or fire me off an email what you thought of this this style of video. So I'm going to finish it there, so I'll just show you how far I got. I finished the W and the V, and now I'm working on the U, but this is where I have to fudge it a bit, so I may end up having to take out a little bit. We'll see. So thanks so much for thanks so much for joining me. I hope that I'll do another Stitch With Me video. My plan is to do them once a week. If you're enjoying them. If you're not, I won't do them. And otherwise, I will see you on Monday or Tuesday to do my regular floss tube video. Hopefully I'll have some progress on my Sweet Bee sampler to show you. And remember that the hashtag for that stitch along is hashtag SweetBeeSAL on Instagram. And I haven't heard from anybody yet who wants to do the stitch along on Instagram, or sorry, on Facebook. So if you do, please let me know soon so I can set that up. And if not, I'll see you over at Instagram, or we can just you can just participate with me by comments underneath or by email, however you want to do it. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.